sense of wonder. Get your fill to eat, but always keep that hunger. May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you never fear those mountains in the distance. Never settle for the path of least resistance. Living might mean taking chances, but they're worth taking. Loving might be a mistake, but it's worth making. Don't let some helping heart leave you bitter. When you come close to selling out, reconsider. Give the heavens above more than just a passing glance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you
Thank you, Linda, Jonathan, Matt, and Andrew. You have a date at my funeral to sing that. That and It's a Wonderful Life. So it's written in many places. I have no idea who to acknowledge the quote to that says, how you approach death is how you are living. And if you want to approach your life differently, we should learn to approach death differently. In our book, The War of Art, he tells a story. It's actually from a movie. And I have witnessed this in my own life, where someone receives a terminal diagnosis. And in the split second, that moment, that terminal diagnosis has been given, everything changes. The meeting that person was rushing off to is no longer quite so important. the urgency of the doingness. Perhaps it takes second seat to the family relationships that need to be repaired, the bucket list that's been ignored for years. In that moment, everything changes. And we're living that life. Every one of us is walking toward that day. In this body, we're walking towards the day when we leave and we lay this body down. And how we embrace that, how we understand that, how we work with that in our own consciousness has everything to do with how we embrace our lives. And so the question is, what do we do until that day? As Linda so beautifully sung to us, are we dancing? Are we dancing our own lives? Are we dancing what it is that we're here to do? Are we dancing the steps that are written on our hearts? Are we dancing to the music that only we can hear? Or are we dancing someone else's dance? You see, we're here as the divine expressions of life itself. We're here to make manifest the glory of the divine. We're here to be the truth of our being as only we can be. If we want to know what God's plan or purpose is for us, it's to be you. For you to be you. To celebrate the glory of the life that has emerged as you. Just as we would walk into our gardens and we would look at a beautiful rose or a perfect iris or a lovely carnation, each unique and precious. Our lives are here for us to bloom the presence of the divine as us in some very precious way. And sometimes we forget that that's our purpose, don't we? And other times we may feel trapped, unable to live our purpose. Maybe we've actually struggled with discovering what is that is the truth of my being, that is seeking to be revealed as me. And when we find ourselves in those places, you and I both know people, more people than I care to count, who have found themselves so trapped that they were unable to continue, unable to carry on. My son's 22, and in the last 3 years of his life, he's lost now 3 of the closest people. Young people, 19, 21, and now 22. In 1996, I had bought a house in Capel and decided I would live there because there was a beautiful elementary school there, the best school system in the area. So my partner at the time and we bought a house there. So Jason was ready to go to kindergarten. And I raced home every day from the center so that I could be home when Jason got home from school. And he started school, he started kindergarten. It was great. I could see the alleyways and the big field, and so he could sort of pretend that he was unsupervised. Like we were as kids, remember that? Can't really do that today anymore. So we set it up so that would be like, that's what it would be like. In November, I got a knock on the door. Miss Christie was at the door. She'd moved in 4 doors down at the house on the corner, and she'd enrolled her 2 sons, Jeremy and Garrett, in the elementary school. And she had said, I work full time. What am I going to do with my sons when school is over? do you know of what programs there are? And I really need some help. And the woman in the office said, well, Jason Wise lives just down the street from you, just a few doors down, and I don't know what they're doing, and maybe they can help you. And I think his mom comes home and is there in the afternoons. Why don't you check it out? So that day in November, Miss Christie knocked on my door, and she said, here I am, and can you help? I'd be happy to pay you. And I said, oh no, I'm not running a daycare. Oh no. You just send them on over. I'll be here every day. And all the way through elementary school until Jason and Jeremy were in 6th grade. Jeremy and Garrett were at my table after school every day, doing homework. I was teaching Jeremy how to hold a pencil correctly. And Jason, as an only child, he got to experience what it was like to have a brother. 2 brothers, in fact. They delighted in getting in revenge on the older one. And he learned how to fight and how to make up and how to share. And Miss Christie became the aunt that wasn't available to him. And our families were there for each other. And as they moved through their time in elementary school and moved into middle school, both Jeremy and Jason discovered that life wasn't as easy for them as it seemed to have been. Both of them discovered, well, they didn't really quite fit in. They were a little different. And they each struggled with that. And that's the project of a child. That's our project as we're developing as young people through adolescence. That's our project. Who am I? What is this all about? How do I fit in? And what happens when I don't? And what do I do if I'm different? And our project is to discover who we are as human beings, who we are as people, and what we're good at, and what we like, and the kinds of people we like to hang around with. And it's a powerful and wonderful time of growing and becoming, and we explore and we try all kinds of things. But we also learn how to hide, don't we? When we discover how different we are than everybody else, and we learn how to either isolate, withdraw, or we become the life of the party, the trickster, the jokester, or we work to be popular, and maybe we tie ourselves in knots being who we think others want us to be, whether that's our peers or our family. And we take those things into adulthood, don't we? And in those moments, we have forgotten that we're here to manifest the glory of God. That's our purpose. And as we step then onto the path of spiritual growth and becoming more of who we are, we actually have to confront these things that we have taken on, these ways of hiding, protecting, separating ourselves, or making ourselves look like we belong. And we discover ourselves as somewhat inauthentic and perhaps trapped in a life not of our choosing. Stephen Pressfield says this: we're fighting dragons too, fire-breathing griffins of the soul, whom we must outfight and outwit to reach the treasure of our self in potential, and to release the maiden who is God's plan and destiny for ourselves, and the answer to why we're put on this planet. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's called the war of art for a reason. He says this professionalism that we talked about last week, being a professional rather than an amateur, we could also call it the artist's code or the warrior code. We might call it the spiritual living code. The willingness to confront our dragons, to slay our demons, to do battle with our insecurities, to face our fears, to face them down for the nothingness that they are, to find a new place to stand, a new way of being in the world. You see, we've been talking about resistance all these last couple of weeks. We've been talking about resistance, and that is the experience that we have when we live from our human life, when we live from these false ideas that we have about ourselves, this way in which we have learned to conform, to fit in, to belong, or to protect ourselves. And when we decide to grab hold of our lives and to grab hold of that magnificence that is seeking to express as us, we need to confront these dragons, these demons, these challenges, these things that we may be in service to. This warrior code that Stephen talks about in The War of Art, he says it is the code of egolessness and service. And so we might ask ourselves, what is our life in service to? Is our life in service to fitting in, belonging, making it, being accepted, having it be smooth and easy, everything being okay? Or is our life in service to manifesting the glory of God? Is our life in service to expressing the glorification of our own soul and the soul of life itself as us? Stephen Pressfield goes on to say, our job in this lifetime is not to shape ourselves into some ideal we imagine that we ought to be, but to find out who we already are and become it. This self that we already are and become it. Ernest Holmes goes on and he says this: there is a pattern of God behind our personality, seeking unique expression through it. And to this we should surrender everything we are. For this surrender will not lead us away from reality. It is not an escape, but a revelation and an instrumentation of something greater than we appear to be. Do you see, we don't necessarily believe in a divine plan, that there's some will of God, a plan for you to be an accountant, or even a mom, or a job of any sort. Well, we recognize that there is a divine pattern of life itself that is seeking to express itself, to evolve and to grow and to become all that it can be. And we are the outlet for that, or we are the inlet for that into this life experience. Each one of us a place where that divine pattern of life itself is moving and dancing to the music of our own hearts, to the music of our own consciousness, to the using the steps that are written somewhere deep in our souls that say, this is who I came here to be. And we forget, don't we? And we limit ourselves. So my friend Jeremy and Jason, they would tease, Jeremy and I and Jason and Miss Christie, we would tease that they had been switched in the hospital at birth. Surely Jason was her son and Jeremy was mine, because Jason was all into all that stuff that they were into. They would go camping and they would go hiking and fishing and the guns and the four-wheel drives and the sports and the doing all of that stuff. And Jeremy and I, we'd be at home looking at the flowers. He'd bring me the little roly-polies. Miss Petra, what is this? We'd look at the bugs. He was very into biology and nature. And Jason wanted to just take everything apart and put it back together again. He wanted to know how it worked. And Jeremy and I, we would discuss the fairies and the flowers. I'll never forget one time he came to me and he said, Miss Petra, what is this? What is this? And he brought me a little maple, one of those little maple helicopter seeds, And I showed him how to spin it, how we used to do as kids. And he was like, wow, that's so cool. I said, yeah, that's a maple seed. Really? What's that? Well, it's a seed. You plant it in the ground, and it'll grow into a maple tree. Really? Oh, yeah. Okay, let's do it. So we planted it right there in the flower bed by our house. We planted it, and the damn thing grew. Just like it was supposed to. And there it was. And it just, a year and a half later, there was a tree growing by the side of my house. And I said, Jeremy, look, there's your tree, and it's growing just like it's supposed to. And so sure enough, so we dug that little thing out, and we moved it over, and we planted it in the grassy part on the side of our house. And when I moved out of that house, it was taller than the house.
Oh, wow.
Jeremy's tree. Jeremy's maple tree. And there were a couple of years where I would tease, okay, go stand by the maple tree. Let's see who's winning, you or the tree. Of course, the tree won, but that was a good thing. And he was fascinated by those things. And Miss Christie would say to me, oh, I'm so grateful he has you, because I don't know what to do with him. And I would say, it's so good Jason can go play with you. Because we're all so different, right? Something makes us tick, something unusual, something unique, something that is just ours. And when we find ourselves in the situation where we have become willing to be that which we think others want us to be, we find ourselves in a trap, don't we? So when we think about this code, this spiritual living code, Stephen Pressfield, he says, it is about egolessness and service. Now, often when we think about egolessness and service, we sort of think about, well, I'm going to set my ego aside and not be about me and not be a braggart and not have it be all about me, and I'm going to have it be about you, and I'm going to be in service to the world, and and all of that, and that's fine, and that's lovely and wonderful, but that's not what he's talking about. And when we use the term ego in the science of mind, that's not what we're talking about either. We're not talking about the psychological understanding of we need to, or that our parents said, don't brag, don't toot your own horn. But this is the ego. This is an understanding of the ego versus the self. The ego and the self that we are. And when we understand it from this point of view, we recognize that the ego is a necessary part of being a human being. It's a necessary part of who we are in the world and how we move as human beings in the space-time continuum. We have eyes so that we can absorb the light that is reflected off of things and actually see them. We have hands so that we can manipulate the physical things in the world. If we didn't have these things, if we were, I can't think of the word, discorporal beings, if we were beings without bodies, we would not be able to sit in a chair or eat the food or hug our loved ones or caress our children's cheek. Do you see? So we need those things to move in the world, and our ego is the same. Our ego is the construct, the mental construct that we have that allows us to actually operate in the space-time continuum. It is that which catalogs and separates and categorizes things. It is that thing, very importantly, that can determine the difference between the street and the sidewalk. So you actually drive where you're supposed to drive. It's very important. It's that part of you that determines, oh, I'm supposed to be in my boss's office in 10 minutes, and if I'm not there, I will be fired. I better be on time. Do you see? Our ego understands the construct of the space-time continuum. And its job is to manage that and to protect us within it. The problem is that because of this orientation, we begin to believe that the way in which the ego sees the world is the only way there is to see it. The problem with the way the ego sees the world is that it believes that death is real, because if you are no longer a part of the space-time continuum, where are you? What are you? The ego can't answer that question because it can't categorize catalog it, it can't see it and experience it. The ego believes that time and space is real, which is a really good thing, or you would not stop at the red light. And that would be bad. You would not feed your child on time, and that would be bad. Right? So the ego needs to understand that the space-time continuum is real. The ego believes that individuals are separate from each other. This is an important developmental part of our ego growth. We actually have to understand we're not our mom, we're not our parents, we're not our families. This is part of what allows us to grow, to discover who we are as human beings and how we show up in the world. The ego is about self-preservation. This comes from the historical, wherever we grew up, whatever our ancestors were doing, whether they were in the savannah or in the forest or out on the ice floes or wherever they were, when a wild animal came, they had to know what to do. The ego knows how to manage self-preservation, and because it absolutely understands the space-time continuum, it does not understand anything beyond that. And so there is no way to engage with that which is beyond the physical, that which we might call the spiritual. And so when we move from that place, it is easy to feel trapped, to feel uncertain, to feel unclear about who we are and what we're doing and why we're here. And so we face the challenge of preserving ourselves in the face of judgment, of difference, of not fitting in. This was a part of Jeremy's problem. He came out gay and, 18 or 19 years old. And, of course, we'd talked about it for years, his mother and I. And that was a huge challenge in his family, massive challenge in his family. And Miss Christie said, "Don't you get between me and my son." She was a mama bear when it came to supporting him and defending him and loving him. And yet we can feel so different. We don't love ourselves. We don't discover that there's something beyond this. There's something beyond any label, any definition, anything that we feel trapped in, anything that we feel uncertain about. That there's if we want to move beyond that, we move to this place of egolessness and service. We move to our real selves, the truth of who we are, our essential being, the presence of the divine as us. The self, to the self, death is an illusion because we aren't trapped in the space-time continuum. So the time and space are an illusion. And we see that there's so much more going on. Not that this isn't real, but it's not the only thing that's happening. That all beings are one, that we are in fact not separate at all, and that there is something within us that is connected in some extraordinary way. It's all about love. It's not necessarily about preserving ourselves. It is about giving ourselves away. Oh, not in some psychologically codependent way. You know what I mean? It's not, It's about giving ourselves away. It's about giving our gift, giving our life, being our light, shining who we are in the world with as much joy and enthusiasm and chutzpah as we can muster. And we recognize that God is all there is, because it's all just God. It's all the divine reality unfolding through the space-time continuum and beyond, and in all ways. And this becomes that place. Do you see that what he calls the warrior code, the artist's code, what we might call the spiritual living code? It is the willingness to slay the dragons of the ego. Oh, not the ego that says, oh, look at me, look at me. That's the psychological ego, but this construct that believes that this is the only way life is real. And to slay those dragons, and to remember the truth of who we are, the spiritual truth of who we are. Do you see, all of our resistance comes primarily from the one deep, fundamental understanding that the ego has, that life is about self-preservation. That's where our resistance comes from, doesn't it? It comes from our fear. And the ego is doing everything to preserve us, to keep us safe. And we had a wonderful sharing in our Wednesday night, a recognition. One of the women said, "Oh gosh, I've been keeping myself safe." And so it was a moment of joy to experience that. And it was like, okay, how many of us want on our tombstone, "She was safe"? Boring. Not expressing the life that we are. And yet that's what our ego is seeking to do. And that self-preservation comes out of our fear. So let's talk for a minute. What are those fears? What is the fear that drives us?
Bottom line is death.
Death. The fear of death. Good. All right. What else? What other fears do we have that keep us trapped, that keep us from being who we are? Fear of failure. Fear of acceptance, of not belonging. Fear of rejection. Fear of success. Fear of not enough. Fear of life. Fear of being great. Fear of... Yes, good. All right, so let's listen. He has a whole list. I thought it was pretty funny. Okay, here you go. Fear of the consequences of following our heart. Fear of bankruptcy. Fear of poverty. Fear of an insolvency. Fear of groveling when we try to make it on our own. And of groveling when we give up and come crawling back to where we started. Fear of being selfish, of being rotten wives or disloyal husbands. Fear of failing to support our families, of sacrificing their dreams for ours. Fear of betraying our race, our hood, our homies. Fear of failure. Fear of being ridiculous. Fear of throwing away the education, the training, the preparation of those we love, have sacrificed so much for, that we ourselves have worked our butts off. Fear of launching into the void, of hurtling too far out there. Fear of passing some point of no return beyond which we cannot recant, cannot reverse, cannot rescind, but must live with this cooked up choice for the rest of our lives. Fear of madness, insanity, and of death. I resonated with way too many of those. What is the mother of all fears? We've already heard it in the room. What is the mother of all fears? Say it again. Not death. The fear that we will succeed. The mother of all fears. The fear that we will succeed. That we will become ourselves. That we will come out of the closet. Whatever closet that is that we might find ourselves in. And because we come out of the closet, we push other people. We push them away. We push them to see us differently. We push outside of the box in which they have put us. He writes this: the mother of all fears is the fear that we will succeed. That we can, in fact, access the power we secretly know we possess. That we can become the person we sense in our hearts we truly are. This is the most terrifying prospect a human being can face, because it ejects him at one go, he imagines, from all the tribal inclusions his psyche is wired for and has been for 50 million years. Self-preservation. We fear discovering that we are more than we think we are, more than our parents, children, or teachers think we are. We fear that we actually possess the talent that our still small voice tells us, that we actually have the guts, the perseverance, and the capacity. We fear that we truly can steer our ship plant our flag, reach our promised land. We fear this because if it's true, then we become estranged from all we know. We pass through a membrane. We know that if we embrace our ideals, we must prove worthy of them, and that scares the hell out of us. What will become of us? We will lose our friends and family who will no longer recognize us. We will wind up alone in the cold void of starry space with nothing and no one to hold on to. Of course, this is exactly what happens, he goes on to say. But here's the trick. We wind up in space, but not alone. Instead, we are tapped into an unquenchable, undepletable, inexhaustible source of wisdom, consciousness, and companionship. Oh yes, we may lose friends, but we'll find new ones wherever we go. He quotes William Blake, "Eternity is in love with the creations of time." Eternity is in love with the creations of time. Do you see, in eternity, there is no creation because there is no time. There's only isness. In eternity, there's only being. Okay, now what? Gosh, I wonder what it's like to be Petra or Linda. What is it like to have that body, that shape, have those sets of interests? What is it like to live here, live there? What is it like to do this, do that? That is the point. That's why we're here, is to provide that avenue, to be that avenue for life itself to express into all of the myriad, unique, and wonderful ways in which we do. And every time that we create that thing, which is the urge that is ours to do, not the job that we have to have, although the job may outpicture that, but that inner urge that is the truth of our being, that is seeking to pour itself out into life, every time we do that, that is the gift we are giving back to God. Do you see, our life is the love that Spirit has for us. It has given all of itself, fully and completely. It has given absolutely everything. It has given itself to us as us. And not only that, it has given the very creative process to us. We are made in the image and likeness of the divine. There is no greater love. Here, let me give you everything. That is our life. What we do with it, the creation of the life that we construct, that we make, the newness that we allow to emerge from us, the expression of our joy and bliss, of our possibilities, that's the gift we give back to eternity. Eternity is in love with the creations of time. That's our purpose. That's our being. Your passion, yourself, your dream, your thing. That's the gift that we give back to the whole. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is not our light. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it's in every one. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Marianne Williamson. And when we are not able to let our light shine, I would say that's a tragedy. And that tragedy plays itself out in so many ways. From being dead in our jobs, to being dead in our relationships, to being dead in our spiritual practice, to being dead. And that is the ultimate way in which resistance wins out. And yet if we are willing to step on that path, if we are willing to be egoless and be in service to that passion, in service to life itself, in service to a way that that love wants to be in the world as us. Stephen Pressfield, he starts this portion of the book by saying the angels, allies, and muses will gather around. We will attract to us exactly and precisely the support that we need. We will pull in the intuition, feel the inspiration, have that light bulb moment. We will draw to us exactly and precisely those angels and allies that we need. Because we are part of the whole, because we are connected, because space and time is an illusion, because everything we need has already been given. It's all about the very love of life itself as us, being that love. And so it's all already there. And as we are willing to fling ourselves into that, I was reminded by Shannon's beautiful sharing. This is when Spirit carries us. The very life that we are, the very deepest essential truth of our being, carries us through the slaying of the dragons, the doing the work, the being in the trenches, the willingness to say, no, I am not going to think that thought anymore. I'm going to stop beating up on myself. I'm going to stop being afraid. I'm going to stop whatever these things are. And I am committed to allowing my light to shine. And we have the strength and the courage to do that because we attract to us everything that we need. So yesterday afternoon, Miss Christie and the family came here. I'll be sharing the memorial, actually the funeral service for Jeremy with with Miss Christie's brother-in-law, an Assembly of God minister. Many of the family is a part of that, and yet Jeremy is not. And she wanted to honor her son. And she came here and she said to me, I stood on your doorstep in November with my son. And here I am again today. And I got to say, come in. Again. And I got to be an angel in her life. Jason and I have spent the last couple of days talking about the angels that Jeremy and Christy and Garrett have been in our lives, and us in theirs. And when we look for that support, because we are willing to give our gift and be the love that we are, we must know that Spirit's arms hold us. Spirit's love lifts us. Spirit's inspiration guides us. And that which we need will be there. Let us pray. So I invite you, before you close your eyes, I invite you to just take a moment to look around the room. There are angels and allies sitting in these seats. That's what we're here to do together, to be together. so that we can remind each other when any one of us feels trapped or separate or alone, when any one of us has gotten lost in the notion that there's something about this human experience that is real. We're here to do this for each other. Let us pray. So as we go within and take that breath of love, that breath of life, that breath of light itself, we move deeply into the source of our being, recognizing that there is within us that essential reality, that place where love lives and joy wells up and passion grows and life unfolds. Right here, where each one of us is. And we are sourced from that infinite life, that infinite reality. Our very life blooms from the ground of that being. And we are called to bloom into the flower, the blossom that is only ours to be in this garden of life. And that nothing, no situation, no circumstance, no person, not death itself can sever that connection. That we are always and forever eternally sourced from that one infinite life. And that no matter how long it takes and how hard we have to work and no matter what steps we have to take, it is assured that our blossom will bloom and that we will give our gift and we will be the truth of who we are, because this is what we have come here to be. And so this morning, let us, with joy, celebrate this. Let us grab hold of every angel in our lives and be willing to turn and slay our dragons. For we have all the strength and courage and light that we will ever need. We hold in our hearts those that have gone before us. Perhaps the road was a little too long or a little too hard. Whatever the story may be, it is not important. What we know is that their lights shine just as brightly, that their flowers are blooming just as beautifully, that each one is just as sourced from the same love and light as we are. Because there is nowhere to go outside of God. Knowing this truth, we allow ourselves to breathe in that perfect trust and faith. We know it is so. We let it be. And so it is.